clearly. So I'm gonna paste the link in the chat here. Good morning, everyone. I've just pasted a link to the updated KEP. There are a few pieces of information missing. However, it's something I'll add very quickly now. But this is the
Did you start over with a new PR?
Yeah, entirely new. Yeah.
Okay, so GitHub won't be super slow, which will be a nice benefit.
That's true. I also meant that I basically rewrote the entire KEP.
Oh yeah, I knew you were going to do that, but I didn't know if you were going to force push that on top of the old one and maintain the history. This is probably for the best.
Yeah. I think so too. All right, so just simplified all the information that's there for someone who's reading it for the first time. And if anyone wants to get deeper into any of this, there's links to the code, there's links to the spec. People should be able to do it. And I don't think at the alpha level you'll need any deeper of a review. But just take a look. I think it's very easy to read. That was one of the main intentions I had for rewriting this KEP. Tim kind of openly just said that's what he wants. Let me share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, so here's the new KEP. Yeah, even these fields have been like dramatically reduced, simplified, and this is all stuff that we all know. I've laid out the goals. I called bucket sharing as bucket reuse. This is something I wanted your input on. It just is much easier to understand what we're talking about when we say reuse, and also it by default applies to both namespace sharing and cluster, cross clusters sharing,
and brownfield use cases. Yeah, that's the.
What do you think?
I like the name. Yes.
The name. Yes.
I think it makes sense.
I may have an echo. Sorry if I do.
Reuse. In America, the future belongs to everyone. So we built the
Go ahead.
For my wallet, I just wanted three things. Had to be simple, really.
My Chrome just crashed.
I see.
Reuse to me means taking an existing bucket, saving its name, and then reusing it. It means like an erase operation.
Oh.
But that's just that makes me think we're repurposing a bucket rather than sharing it.
So generally in computer science, when we say reuse, I hear the echo. Jeff, if you can mute yourself, that would be good. Yeah. So in generally in computer science, when we say reuse, we like in code, we're really talking about using that code again. But I guess storage is different from compute, and you could say code is a form of compute. To me, reuse seems much more accurate than saying bucket sharing, and this seems to be the best term that we've got as of now to clearly convey what we're trying to do. Do you think it causes more ambiguity than, do you think it causes a lot of ambiguity to call it reuse?
I can see that interpretation.
I
see that interpretation.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say I can see that interpretation, but I don't know. I mean, you always have to define words when you use them.
Yeah.
So we could just define it to explain. We're not recycling buckets. We're sharing them. We're reusing them.
Yeah. I
mean, that maybe sharing is a little bit less ambiguous, but I don't know. I like reuse.
Yeah, me too.
What's the issue with the word sharing? I know that that's a common description for
I think it
files.
Yeah, I think fair point. So I think sharing makes sense in the context of someone who understands the cozy system, um, but for someone who's just reading the cap for the first time, I think it's harder to understand what we're talking about when you say sharing. Like, why even worry about sharing? The whole reason is because we constrain a bucket to a namespace by, or not a bucket to a namespace, not the actual bucket resource to a namespace, but in concept, we do constrain the bucket to be accessed by the namespace that created it, or the namespaces in the
Well,
allowed namespace list.
so you raise an excellent question when you ask it that way, which is like we're fundamentally doing two different things. Like for people who have a lot of existing buckets, they could be completely uninterested in our create delete type workflows, and they might be specifically interested in just the access granting and the automatic plumbing of credentials into the pods, and that could be all they really care about, in which case um, the, the talking about sharing or reuse will seem bizarre to that user, because they're like, wait, I already have my buckets, I just want to use them in Kubernetes, like why can't I do that? And then yeah, the whole provisioning case is very I don't know how to describe it, very specific to
Cozy
workloads where
itself.
you want to automate bucket life cycles um, within Kubernetes, and they are kind of different use cases that we're trying to tackle them both. So
Okay.
I think we
It
need
is
to.
really shared access, though, don't you think?
Well, what is
Jeff?
shared
What we're
access?
trying to define is, yeah,
Well, no,
shared access to a
I'm
bucket.
envisioning two specific kinds of users. There's the user who already has his buckets and he just wants to use them in Kubernetes in as convenient a fashion as possible. And so for that guy, the representation of the bucket in Kubernetes, a way to bind a pod to it with potentially its own specific access credentials that can be revoked independently of anything else, are all very valuable to that user. Um, and when they want to go create a new bucket, they're just going to go do that the way they've always done it, through whatever their bucket API is. That's one kind of user, and they're never going to touch a bucket request, presumably.
Yeah.
And then there's another type of user who wants to, create and destroy buckets as part of some sort of a, how do you? I don't know. I forget what the buzzword is, but this whole,
Stateless application.
huh?
Stateless application.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
specifically,
that's
I'm
all.
referring to like defining your application as a bunch of YAML that represents like all the pieces, so you can deploy it in a place, and then you can pick it up and deploy it in another place, and you can compare
Infrastructure
this
as
thing.
code.
Yeah, maybe something like that. So yeah, the infrastructure as code people are gonna say, well, I need a way to create a bucket because my application needs a bucket to do whatever. And so of course I need to be able to create a bucket and have a provisioner that can go satisfy that, just like the PVCs. And and for that type of user, then the creation and deletion is integral,
Useful.
because they want it to all be inside Kubernetes. They don't want to ever have to go out and talk to something else. They just want to say, if there's a cozy driver and I make a bucket request, of course I'm going to get a bucket, and then I can use it, and I can wire it up to my pods by defining the appropriate things. But I guess the question is, will these two users ever meet each other or overlap in their interests? Maybe not.
I don't think we can make that assumption, but yeah, we'll come back to this reuse question later. And yeah, we can go back to calling it sharing and define it, or it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, let's move forward. But Ben, did we answer the question that you just had about?
It's not a question. I guess it's just a
Yeah.
framing of who the personas are for this API. The two big ones that are floating around in my head are the infrastructure as code person who wants to be able to automate everything and be portable across implementations. And then there's the persona of someone that has a bunch of buckets and has, the predate cozy and wants to continue doing what they've been doing, but they just want to use those buckets inside Kubernetes. And they're going to have a different set of desires than the first persona. And there's probably other personas you could dream up, but those, it's that second one that really highlights the fact that like we seem to be prioritizing the first one, and the second one who already has a bunch of buckets and he doesn't want to share them or reuse them. He just wants to use them. In his mind, he has buckets and he wants to use them. And how do you do that with Cozy? And we've never really focused. We've never made that our top priority. We've always made it like an afterthought.
And we could call that something that we'll get into more during beta. I think we've addressed it okay.
Yeah. I mean, our brownfield use case addresses it, but it's like it feels a little bit like a second-class citizen.
Right. I mean, I guess we, like one of the reasons for that is probably subconsciously we're trying to, we're thinking in the Kubernetes way. We're pushing the world forward and focusing on the new way we want people to do things, which is just to create on the fly.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to go over on the KEP itself was the changes that we actually brought into each of the resources. We drastically simplified pretty much all of them. So here I'm talking about bucket. Okay, I need to put the picture here. So we said the bucket request is just going to have a protocol field by name because the application is expected to know the protocol. The protocol field stopped being a full-fledged structure, went back to being what it was probably a year ago, where it's just an identifier for that actual protocol. And in the bucket class as well, that protocol field became pretty much nothing, and anything that's protocol specific was decided to be represented using parameters. Do you all remember that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So same thing, the fields from here go into the bucket, again, drastically simplified. Then that translates to the gRPC API, which pretty much what's in the bucket. So the gRPC API, we didn't really discuss it, but it's kind of implied that the protocol structure changes to what we've now defined, and also everything goes in through the parameters. Driver specific parameters go in through parameters. Similarly for again picture access credentials, same thing. We have the bucket access request, which points to an access class name and a bucket request name. I'm talking about just generating access credentials in the context of cozy created buckets at this point. An access class just has a provisioner name and parameters. Then using this, we infer the bucket name and we set parameters copied from the bucket class and bucket access class, and then set the bucket access class name. Provisioner name should be here, that's missing, but I'll add it. We renamed the minted secrets to credential secret, and yeah.
Wait a minute. The parameters are copied here
from bucket access class.
Like we don't do this anywhere else in Kubernetes. Like the parameters are meant to be opaque, and therefore they should not show up anywhere else in the API. What would be the purpose of copying them and keeping them in the Kubernetes API? I mean, you supply them at access grant time to the driver, and the driver interprets them, but then at that point you can throw them away, I think.
How else would you know? How else would you know what are the policies that have been applied to this access? Like it's going to be unknown to you. You won't be able to figure out what was applied on this, like what policy applies to this access credential if you don't copy those values here.
I think once this bucket access is created, then you should supposedly you should know or I think that's at least that's what we usually do for those opaque parameters. But I think if it's like first class
I
parameters,
think
we copy it.
so. I think the logic goes like this: if Kubernetes needs to do something with the values, then it's represented in the Kubernetes API. What Kubernetes needs to do with the access class parameters is pass them into an access grant request. But once access has been granted and we have a BA object, Kubernetes never needs those values again. So the only consumer of these values at this point is the user or the admin.
Isn't that that's a fair stakeholder? The user and admin are important.
Right. But I mean, nowhere else in Kubernetes do we keep values around just for the user's own interest. Like the idea is if you cared about that, you could put annotations on it, you could put labels on it, you could do whatever. Like you don't. Kubernetes isn't around to do a bunch of bookkeeping for you. We don't have superfluous fields that aren't necessary for some controller to do its job.
That would apply to this also, right? The bucket also, right?
Yeah. We wouldn't want to be preserving the opaque values in the bucket object because it would serve no purpose other than just information.
Yeah, I don't think this. So yeah, I don't think this affects the architecture or functioning very much, because you can still achieve everything without having parameters here.
Yeah.
The only thing that changes is who can access it.
But I think it does. We did this. We did think about having these parameters in the bucket and in the bucket access because we wanted. So we wanted to have control on updating those, right? By the admin.
The model of class objects is that they only apply at creation time.
Right, but then we're saying that the bucket has opaque parameters on creation time. That implies that these parameters also, some of them at least, can be affected after creation as well. Let's say you have some type of policy, some type of, information that affects how the driver should.
They may or may not be updatable, right? That's up to how, because they're opaque, it's up to what the driver does with them. It could use them for something that's updatable. It could use them for something that's not updatable. But the point is, it's
a driver specific one.
Kubernetes is never going to, call like a mutate bucket with here's some new opaque parameters.
Right.
So, or at least we've chosen not to do that on the volume side, right? We have a couple of opaque parameters in the storage class that get passed down at create time, but they're persisted nowhere. And if you ever cared about what those things were, you either have to keep track of them some other way or go look at the actual storage and figure it out. We don't do you a lot of favors in terms of remembering.
And hope that it wasn't deleted and recreated.
Well, I mean, it's opaque, so it's like there's no standard way to do this. So if you have a NetApp device and you have a NetApp storage class and you have a bunch of opaque parameters that are NetApp specific, if you care about them, you just go look at your NetApp device and see what the settings are on the actual, flex files that got created or whatever. But that's all proprietary, and Kubernetes doesn't care. So Kubernetes is just saying, okay, when you create a volume, we're going to shove a bunch of opaque parameters in so that you can do a couple of things at creation time, but we're not going to help you after creation time.
Kubernetes is a set of controllers, right? And one of these controllers is going to be the NetApp driver, for that matter, for Cozy, and the NetApp driver cares, right? It wants to provide a CRD-based API for its administrators running on Kubernetes, right?
The bucket is not that CRD is what you're saying. So the bucket cannot. So
well, no. The reason that NetApp is interested in implementing something like Cozy is because to the extent that actual users start to consume Cozy as a standard way of managing their buckets, we want it to be possible to do that on NetApp devices. I mean, we have our own APIs. You can use them today. Like, there's nothing stopping people from using NetApp object storage without Cozy. We're interested in Cozy to the extent that it makes it easier for users to use the functionality we already have.
Yeah, and we've always said, we encourage people to write controllers on top of Cozy. Cozy provides that generic layer over which you can write your own CRDs and controllers that represent your buckets.
Yes, and having preserving the opaque parameters in the bucket object doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Because no controller is ever going to go look at that information. It would just be maybe a human who was curious to know what the values of the bucket class were at the time that bucket was created, on the off chance that somebody had changed something. That would be the only value that they would offer.
Yeah, only admins can read this anyways.
But
Right.
this implies that any administration of any modification would have to bypass Kubernetes, right?
Right, but that has been the model that we've talked about a hypothetical mutation operation, but we've never come up with a concrete example. And as long as we don't have a concrete example, we have to presume that there may never be one. So certainly in the case of volumes, there is only one mutation operation, and that's resize. And we know we don't want to resize buckets. And so, and resize has been a mess to implement. So like, it would be better if we never had to mutate anything, just from a architectural.
Yeah, but every controller, like every reconcile is a mess to that extent, right? Because if you have changes and you want to reconcile them to some other API, right? But I think the value here is that we would keep the administration within Kubernetes. I'm seeing that PVs don't have that as well, which makes a good argument for why this doesn't belong. But then I just wonder, how does, like with PVs, if I ever want to do anything with that PV, I would have to bypass Kubernetes for that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Or your CSI driver has some proprietary extension that helps you do that thing, but it's all proprietary. There's no standard, because what would the standard even look like that would deal with opaque parameters, right? They're opaque, so there can't be a standard. Like if we
not a standard, but a provider's instruction, right? That's.
Well, no, what I'm getting at is, like, if we were going to support a mutation of something, like we would have to promote that something from opaque to a first class field before we could write a controller that would reconcile it and allow you to mutate it. So we're already, anything that Kubernetes would want to mutate would be outside of the opaque fields anyways, because opaque fields are opaque and we can't understand them. Right, they're just to pass down at creation time, and then the things that we actually want to manage have to be proper fields. But we've said that there aren't any of those things that we know of yet.
There's certainly things like that. I mean, we didn't standardize them yet, but it's like there's policy. There's a bunch of things on buckets. Which
every time we start to dig in, like, we discovered that it's not actually something that's standardizable.
Well, it is in S3. S3 standardized these things. We just didn't want, like we said, we don't want to take S3 as a standard, de facto standard, and just build that
for
these
access.
standard.
For access, that's an accurate statement. But like for bucket creation or anything other than access policies, I don't think we're.
No, there's a bunch, right? There's a replication policy, access policy, like fine grain access policies, and versioning, whatever. There's in S3. There's, I don't know, maybe 20 different policies you can set on an existing bucket, right, and mutate it.
So if you really wanted to do that, you could always create a new bucket with the new parameters according to a new class.
No, I'm not talking about creating something new. I'm really talking about how do I manage, and sometimes I think managing here would be an administrator, manual management, and sometimes it will be another controller trying to do some automation on top.
Yeah, haven't we always said that when in that brownfield use case, it does have the bucket class field, and the whole point of that is to apply new parameters on the bucket.
Wait, what?
Is that? I don't know if you've actually spoken about that.
So again, like the model in the storage world, or the model in the volumes world, was PVs remember the name of the storage class they were created from, but you can delete the storage class after the PV is created and nothing will happen. You can change it and nothing will happen.
No, I'm talking about not updating the storage class or the bucket class here. I'm saying create a new bucket object, brownfield bucket, that points to the original bucket. And in that new bucket object, there's going to be a bucket class set.
Yeah, but the name of the bucket class on the bucket should be just a
You
historical
don't need the bucket
note.
class in that.
I'm
scenario.
saying you can create that bucket with the new bucket class that points to the new parameters, the new modified values.
But
I believe
Kubernetes would be
we've
expected
spoken about
to do nothing with that. Like with the PV, I can create a PV and point it to a volume, and I can give the PV a storage class name, but nothing in Kubernetes will react to that. It's completely ignored.
that's a fine argument. I mean, to what Guy is saying, he's saying that we should be able to mutate bucket related properties.
I mean, I don't
he's-
dispute that as a high level goal, but like whenever we get into the specifics, it always derails us from our primary goal, which is to get the API designed.
yeah,
So like
yeah.
I want to keep the concept of bucket mutation as an abstract concept, as something we do want. I don't want to make the statement that
We don't want
we
it.
want to allow bucket mutation. I'm saying when we do it, it needs to be something that's standardized and not opaque. And we
Right.
really have to think through carefully and expect it to take a long time to lay out what the standard means.
Right.
So for now, what you're saying is that it can still be achieved by using annotations or labels or anything that's add on to the metadata of the bucket or bucket access, but you don't feel like the spec has anything to do with that at this point,
Right now,
right?
it's not possible with annotations and metadata. You still can't do
Well,
it.
right. It's right now you can do it through the opaque fields in your bucket class, and that's sort
While
of the escape
creating.
hatch that we're giving to vendors so that they can do something at creation time. But we're not going to support any kind of formal mutation, because to do that we would need to.
But I could annotate, right? I can put an annotation.
You could make your
and-
cozy driver have some
Right.
proprietary extension that is smarter, and we
Wait,
do
but
that with
the
CSI.
GRP. No, hold on. But in CSI that only applies for secrets, not for config values.
No, so what we're talking about is like you can make your CSI driver watch the PVC and react to its annotations in addition to doing real CSI stuff. It's totally
I think
outside
just the
bounds of
PV in this
CSI.
case, right?
Right.
I didn't really go to the user perspective. Like I really was just looking at the bucket and bucket access and other
Well,
request objects, right?
Yeah, there's you get to design it however you want once you make it proprietary, right? Because it's
Mhm.
proprietary.
Right.
So
Okay, but you're saying this is how we would recommend somebody saying I would like to have some information attached, and
Afterwards.
then the
So
right,
by
but
creation, we have a
let's say that I
mechanism.
also want just 1 second. Let's say that I also want to keep the parameters from the class. I would be able to transform them into my proprietary annotations, for example, and then watch these, right, and be able to mutate things based on those. So we're saying that I can have this solution in a not recommended, but I can have a proprietary way for any vendor to implement such a thing. But you don't think that this should be just a copy of the parameters from that perspective?
right, because we're not going to write a standard Kubernetes controller that watches for changes and then calls it some RPC to say,
Update,
hey, here's
update
new
parameters, right?
There's no update parameters.
Okay.
Hey, Sid, I have a general question. Do you have the type of the parameters specified anywhere?
Map string.
I mean, for everyone, like every single field in the API, do you have that anywhere in this cap? I'm asking you about this cap.
Here
are all
that's
opaque.
That's not clear. It didn't say this is
I
a
see.
string. This team is going to ask for that because he's going to do an API review. If
Fair
he
enough,
does
yeah.
not see the type, then there's no that's not an API review. He has to see the type.
Yeah, no, yeah, we can add that.
So if you think that's too much, maybe you can like add a link to the code.
Oh no, it's fine. No, it's not too much. And yeah, I'll definitely add a link to the code as well. That is no brainer. Yeah, both will help.
I think but I think he's going to ask for the exact type for each
definitely.
one of those. But I don't think they're there. They're here. Right now.
Yeah, I can add those.
Right.
Okay, so taking out parameters
By the way,
from.
Sid, are you editing the same cap? Is that I missed the beginning,
Yeah.
so maybe you said that. Okay, so you
Yeah,
continue editing the same one.
Yeah. It's a PR already. I'm just going to force push a bunch of things.
And also your under the section, the bucket creation, that there is a link to your diagram. I don't see that.
Yeah. I have the diagrams. I just have to add it to the images.
Okay.
Yeah, just finishing everything up. Yeah, okay. So take out parameters, that's fair. And I'll also add a note about how we plan to do bucket mutation in the future. We're gonna address them field by field or mutation type one at a time, and add them as necessary. We're not going to do anything with opaque parameters.
Do you have any comment here about what the discussion we had about the protocol versions, like in the future? Is it described somewhere?
Yeah, so what we said about protocol versions or just everything to do with protocols is they're all going to be specified. They're all going to be a contract between the driver and the workload. So it is expected that whenever a workload in a particular environment, if it expects the protocol version to be a specific one, then it is expected that only drivers that support that protocol version are used.
So you're saying that the dependency is not coded into the YAMLs.
Right. Any protocol specific field is not encoded into the the structures itself.
So you're saying it's just like we say in many cases for any REST API, it's HTTP, and we don't say what type of REST API it is specifically, and we assume that somebody's has set this environment to support the workloads and the bucket types that support them, right? Something like that. Okay. I mean the bucket classes basically, right? The classes should match.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can still configure the class to allow certain APIs, assuming the driver understands such parameters. You could still say support S3, V4, and V5, assuming V5 is something that happens in the future, through the opaque parameters.
But I think though I would if it's not here somewhere, I would just include this snippet of explanation how protocol version might at least fit into this.
Okay.
I think because I think we discussed it quite a lot, and I think it might be. Somebody might question if this is enough to identify the protocol.
I mean, I like that kind of information being in some sort of appendix or footnote, but like given that it's not relevant to someone who's just writing the controllers and who's implementing it, I wouldn't want to.
I agree totally. Yeah, it should be out of the flow.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things I have for the appendix. One is bucket ownership. Other than the few things that we talked about, mutation is another one. Bucket ownership is who owns the bucket that Cozy creates. We have some guidelines on how it should be done, but really we don't care. We don't control it. Yeah, stuff like that. We'll put everything in the appendix. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So please take a look. Like I said, there are some parts that are not linked yet, but they're coming up soon. And please take a look, and we'll go from there. Yeah, the gRPC APIs, I just have to copy them over, got them ready. So yeah, please take a look, and we'll go from there. That's all I've got about the KEP itself. Are there any questions anyone has about this?
Can you paste this specific link to the chat?
Yeah.
Thanks. That's good.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. So, okay. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up was, Shing, when was the deadline for the blog that you were talking about? Would you know?
Blog? I need to check. I haven't really followed up because I assume they will be contacting you. They have not?
Not yet, no.
Has anyone, Ben, has anyone contacted you? No? I thought,
Or Jeff?
I thought they usually, no, I thought usually if you're, you sign up to write a blog, they have your name there, right? So they should usually ping you directly. But I can check.
Someone pinged me about documentation for my feature.
Oh,
but I think
that you need.
docs.
That's today. Did you have that? I think it's today or tomorrow. Today. Oh, tomorrow actually.
Yeah.
You need to do a placeholder doc for that.
Placeholder.
Yeah,
I thought I did that weeks ago, but maybe I did the wrong thing. So I'll have to make sure I have a docs.
So yeah, so I will need to check the block schedule. Let me just check that. Because normally they will just pin the person, whoever is the author of the blog directly. So I assume they already pinned you guys. If not, maybe it's not the time. It's not.
Understood.
Let me see.
And Jeff, did you hear anything? No.
I think your name. I think SIG. I think probably only your name there. Normally they just ask one name there. I probably put down your name, so they should. Let's see.
Yeah, no worries. Maybe it's yeah. They'll reach out, in a few days.
Okay. Okay. I just see that there was a release block ready for review. I see there's a July 21st. Not sure what that means. Feature blocks ready to review is July 27th. So maybe because there's still a lot of time. So July 27th. So it's towards the end of this month. And the publish is August 4th. Yeah, so I think you very should start writing it. It's a couple of weeks.
Okay, yeah, we'll start writing it then. We can start writing it. Again, I'll bring it up in front of the whole group, and we'll do it together. Okay, what's the deadline for the KEP review? Would you know that?
So well, the thing is, this is auto tree, right? So it's getting a little weird. So, but if you think about it, right, the block has to be out on August 4th. So, and then you need to have the block ready for review on July 27th. I think before that, you need to have the cap in a shape that it has to be merged, because otherwise we don't. We can't write the block.
The cap is for 123, right?
No, it's for 122. That's for 122. That's why we were.
The blog and the out of tree work.
No, yours is different. So yours is don't confuse that with the volume populator, because that.
No, I'm not. The volume populator is for 122, but I thought that our agreement with Cozy was
it is 122.
So we don't need a cap. And
no, it is auto tree. It is still, so. For example, Windows is the same category. They are already out. They already have RC release, right? So they are in good shape. But I think we are falling behind. I don't know if we can make it. But if you can get the cap merged, I would say if you can get a cap merged before the July 27th, then we consider this one to be 122. Because otherwise, I think it's too late. If cap is not even merged, I mean, how can we write a blog, right? That's just a.
But yeah, I'm confused because the cap deadline is at the beginning of the release.
No, that's different. This is auto tree. Same as
there's a separate
Windows. Yeah.
There's a separate deadline for out of tree caps.
Correct.
Okay. That is the piece that I didn't understand.
Yeah. So it's a little weird because this one we don't have to, because we don't have any code in tree, right? The reason they have all of those other deadlines is because, we have this. We have to merge by the merge deadline, which is today actually, right? So we don't have that deadline, code merge deadline today for in tree, right? This one we don't have, but we still. I think some other SIG they maybe just completely don't follow at all. They don't follow. They don't do blog. They don't do anything. They just do their thing. They don't care when it's out. But because the SIG storage, we still try to align with the, with the Kubernetes release, right? Even though it is async it later than that, but we're still trying to align with that. So that's why it's a little weird. Yeah, but I would say, yeah, July 27th, the day when the block is ready for review, should you have the CAP merge. Otherwise,
then.
let's just say, we're not 23. It's just getting too late.
Got it. Okay. All right. Good to know. Yeah, we can get everything ready before that. And in terms of CAP review, let's assume that this thing is complete by tomorrow, the end of this week, the CAP itself. In that case, like, do you think Tim would be very busy now, or do you know when
I think if you like today is like code merge deadline, I assume he will be super busy.
Okay.
So maybe you can ping him
Monday?
tomorrow. He may want to take a break. Then Monday, definitely try to get him start review this next week, I'll say. Otherwise, we are running out of time again, right? Because you think July 27, it's not that far away, actually. Yeah. I mean, still just try to get him to review as soon as possible. I mean, if we can make it in 2022, then 2023, I still need to get in his queue.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think yeah, I will highlight it to him that this is we've addressed some of the things that he's asked for, and also highlight that it should be easier to read this time, and hopefully he reviews it right away. Okay, so that's all I've got for today, unless anyone wants to bring anything up.
So I wanted just on the CAP, the problem of, the missing thing for me, you probably wanted to do that, but is the API, the application side, like how the mount works and mount, like the adapter, CSI adapter.
Yeah.
All these details. I don't know if they really
they matter. Yeah.
If it matters that much to the API review, technically speaking, because this is a mechanism which is already in CSI, right? So it's not.
Well, no, I think it's important to highlight, actually. So I do have a section for that, and yeah, I'm just gonna fill it up. It takes no time to fill these up because we already have these things pretty much prepared. The diagrams are the things that take a while. But yeah, it should be done quick. Shouldn't be a problem. I'm gonna add that for sure.
Okay.
And the appendix with those 3 things, I have to write it down, and the types.
By the way, is the master from the API repo, is that up to date with these relatively, or
it's not.
Are there like missing? Okay.
They're missing changes. Yeah. That's the main reason I didn't directly link it right now.
Yeah.
And bucket ownership. And yeah, I think those are the 3 line items. Yeah. Okay. I think I've gotten the gist of what we just talked about, and deadlines. 27th for review.
But I don't know. I don't understand the process, maybe. But do you know what's going to be needed formally to get approval for the API review? Is that
so? Yeah. The design should make sense. That's really what
okay.
It should be. Yeah.
But the code doesn't have to be ready.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
The status that we're aiming for is alpha provisional, I believe. Is that the right word, Shing? Which means that
not provisional. We're trying to do alpha that's not provisional. So
okay.
So code can be. So we just need to cut a release before 1.23. Then we can still say it is part of 1.22, I guess. So we still have more time. And I also, since we already have a lot of code, it's not like we're starting from scratch, right?
Mhm.
So I think once the cap is merged, then we can, I think we should have enough time to
Mhm.
make the necessary changes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
API review is basically for the doc and not for the.
For the design, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
not for the
okay.
code, no. Yeah, nobody will read all of the code, right? Like the entire thing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't know if Tim want to. I
We're
don't
gonna
know
link
if
to the code for sure.
he may look at the API. I don't know. I don't remember if he looked at the snapshot API code. Entry code he will definitely will review. Actually, this is out of
Right.
tree. I don't know. He may still review the API part.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he doesn't have to review everything. Because we also have all the other repos. Probably just like the API part. At least we probably want to ask him if he want to review. If he want, then he can review those. Maybe he will delegate to SIG storage. That's possible too.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, I don't know about the delegation or not, but I think we can bring the API up to shape. So whether he needs it or not, we should be good to show it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should address that. Um, I think we're in a decent shape then. That's all. Yeah, I'll also write down this other thing. So another thing was how much of our design that contributes to things like portability, and how is that design secure, and system properties like that. Like how much of this is explained in the KEP, and how much of this is assumed to be just inferred from the design?
Is this
I
his
asked this.
question or is this a part of
I'm
the?
asking because so one of the things I haven't explicitly addressed is saying things like, we've said one of the goals is workload portability. Portability comes from, like for instance, putting the provisioner field in the class objects rather than in the request objects. um, do we have to explicitly call that out, or is that just assumed? Like should we add a section for that, or how do we proceed on that?
You can probably wait until there are some comments.
Okay.
I would say try to make the cap simple as much as
Yeah,
possible.
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. That's how I went. I think that's the best answer here. Yeah, because if we start diving into those things, it gets tricky. There's a lot we can add, and it cuts across all the different parts of the system, like all the different APIs, all the different components. So it's probably harder to explain.
I think maybe it will be useful if if in that review process there's a chance to explain the things that we understood that we didn't highlight, or we didn't go into details in the cap actually, right? So that.
Yeah, we have a section for that. Things that we won't address now, and things that
Right.
Yeah, we considered and said no.
Right. So if that can cover many of the questions by referring to that might be a good start. We have an agreement on that, and then we don't want to put too much effort into standardizing more in that area, right? So we had that in a few areas as a design choice.
Right. Yeah. I think adding that section would help with that. Yes.
I was just checking the volume snapshot API of very early PRs. So it looks like we pinned the team. He didn't review it, but actually Jordan reviewed a little bit. But I think mostly by SIG storage folks.
So were there questions raised on that for, how will this be performant, or how will this be secure, or how will this allow portability, stuff like that? Or was that just assumed somehow?
I'm sorry, you mean the
in the volume
snapshot? I don't know. I don't think we have those. I don't think that's yeah, I don't think the questions are at alpha stage.
I see.
Those.
Got it.
Yeah, so maybe yours is fine too, since it's alpha.
Okay. Understood.
I think the Jordan's comments are pretty much a pretty common questions for like general questions for API, not really has to do with portability or security. I don't see anything about those.
Understood. Okay. Okay. I think I have all the information that I need. Is there anything else anyone wanted to bring up again? Okay. We can end for now, and we can reconvene on Monday as usual. So I've been thinking. I think our discussions are more or less. We have a decent grasp on how we're designing the API. Would it make sense now to reduce the frequency of meetings to just one a week, or does it still make sense to have 2 every week?
It's probably reasonable just to have one. I mean, if you need it, then you can add it back, right?
Right. So just the Thursday meetings then?
Probably, yeah, that's probably better, right? That's just follow right after the 6:30 meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Works for me.
Yes.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So I will update the calendar, and yeah, let's meet again next Thursday.
So okay, so you can just because I think you set this Monday meeting, right? So if you cancel
Right.
it, I will just review. I will just remove that from the 6:30 calendar. Then that should be it. I think the
Yeah, I
other
can do
meeting is set by SAD, so that one we just keep that one.
Got it. Okay. Delete this and following events.
Sid,
Okay.
if there's any documentation help that you want, maybe a paragraph writing on some topic that you want help with, feel free to just ping me on Slack or something.
I will do that actually. All right. Thank you for that.
Sure.
That'll help. Okay. All right. I'm canceling Monday meetings going forward from July 12th onwards. All right. You should get a canceled update and info notification. All right. So that's good. I think that's all, and let's meet again on Thursday. And Guy, I'll ping you shortly.
Sure. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.